All right, ready to dive into something totally different today.
I am. I'm excited for this one.
We're grabbing our safety goggles, maybe some earplugs too, because we are going deep into the world of riveting.
Riveting, huh?
Yep. You know those metal fasteners, rivets that hold together like, well, everything. Airplanes, bridges, even some buildings.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see where we're going.
We got a ton of questions from you all about the skilled tradespeople behind those rivets, so today we're going deep. We're talking about what they actually do, the skills they need, and how technology is changing their world, all using RoleCatcher's career library, interview tips, and a bunch of insights on today's job market.
You know, prepping for this deep dive, I've got to say, even I was surprised by some of this stuff.
Really, like what,
Yeah,
what
wait.
surprised you the most about the riveting world?
I think most people, they hear riveting and picture, I don't know, brute strength, just repetitive tasks, that kind of thing.
Right, like a factory job just banging away at metal.
Yeah, exactly. But the reality, it is way more nuanced.
Okay, so unpack that for us. What's the reality of riveting?
It's all about precision, real craftsmanship. This isn't just hammering in nails, you know. Think about it. Imagine working on an airplane fuselage.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Even a tiny mistake with a rivet there could be disastrous.
Absolutely.
These folks, they're more like artisans than factory workers.
That's a good point. I actually remember reading about the tolerances involved in aerospace riveting.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible. Those margins of error are so small, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Fractions of a millimeter, that's what we're talking about. And it's not just about getting the placement right. The source material really emphasized that riveters need to know their metals inside and out.
Makes sense. Different metals, different properties.
Right. Each metal reacts differently to the pressure, the heat, all of it. You use the wrong rivet, the wrong technique, and you risk weakening the entire structure.
So it's like high stakes every time they pick up that riveting gun.
Basically.
And speaking of which, our sources talked about how technology is changing things up, even in a field like this. Robots are entering the scene. So are robots coming for riveters' jobs?
That is the million-dollar question, right? And like always, the answer is complicated. It's true. Robotic riveting systems, they are becoming more common.
I bet, especially for those large-scale jobs.
Exactly, especially for high-volume repetitive tasks. That's where they excel. But it's not as simple as robots just replacing humans. Think of it more like this. Technology changes how the work gets done, but it still needs that human touch, that skilled oversight.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? What are the robots actually doing, and what's left for the humans?
Okay, picture this. You've got this massive automated arm, right, with a riveting head on it. And it's going down the line, precisely installing rivets. Maybe it's working on an aircraft wing, something like that. Robots are great at that consistency, the speed, especially for those really repetitive tasks. But here's the thing. Someone has to program that robot. Someone has to calibrate those movements, troubleshoot any problems that come up. That's where the skilled riveters come in. They're not getting replaced. They're becoming the architects, the supervisors of these systems.
So instead of competing with the robots, they're managing them.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like how we still need surgeons, even with robotic surgery systems. It's about making the technology work for us, not replace us.
Exactly. And you know what? This shift actually creates new opportunities. Think about the skills you'd need to really thrive in this new world of riveting, programming knowledge, data analysis, problem solving in a high-tech environment.
It's not just about mastering those hand tools anymore.
Exactly. It's about mastering the digital tools that control those hand tools.
Which brings us to the question of career progression.
Hmm.
How do you actually move up, climb that ladder in a field that's evolving this quickly?
Well, RoleCatcher paints a pretty clear picture of the typical career path. You're likely to start as an apprentice.
Makes sense, learning from the ground up.
Right. You're assisting experienced riveters, mastering those hand tools, really getting a feel for the materials. You're absorbing all that experience. And gradually, you take on more responsibility as your skills develop.
Okay, so you're building that strong foundation, but then what? How do you go from apprentice to, calling the shots?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
So we've got this aspiring riveter, eager to climb that career ladder. What's the first rung look like?
Okay, so you're fresh out of training, you've got your new safety glasses, right?
Right. Excited to get started.
And you get paired up with a seasoned riveter, someone who's seen it all, someone who can spot a misaligned rivet a mile away.
They've got that eye for detail.
Oh, yeah, and at this stage, it's all about hands-on learning. You're mastering those hand tools, getting a feel for the different materials, really absorbing all that hard-won experience.
Okay, so it's all about that foundation. But then what? How do you go from apprentice to calling the shots.
That's where it gets cool.
Oh.
As you gain that experience, as you prove your skills, you might start to specialize. Maybe you become the go-to person for a specific riveting technique, like, say, blind riveting.
Blind riveting, that rings a bell. That's when you can only access one side of the material, right?
Exactly. It's used in all sorts of tricky situations, like when you're working on something with limited access, or maybe you find that you thrive in that fast-paced production environment. Maybe you end up overseeing a team of riveters on an assembly line, keeping everything moving.
So you find your niche, the area where you really excel. And I'm guessing this is also where those opportunities in automation that we talked about earlier start to come in.
You got it. So imagine this. You've mastered the art of hand riveting. You know those materials inside and out. You've got the techniques down. And now they bring in this state-of-the-art robotic riveting system.
And you're thinking,
You're not threatened, no way. You see this as a chance to level up, to apply all that hard-earned expertise in a whole new way.
instead of just feeding materials into a machine, you're the one programming it, optimizing it, making sure it's performing at its best.
Exactly. And you're the one who knows what to do when things go wrong, how to troubleshoot, how to keep the whole operation running smoothly. And that ability, that's what really sets you apart as you move up the ladder.
It's like you're becoming this, I don't know, rivet master, conducting this orchestra of human and robotic workers, making sure it all comes together perfectly.
I love that analogy. And it speaks to the higher levels of a riveting career, that leadership role. So you've put in the time, you've embraced the tech, you've honed those skills. What does it look like when you're really at the top of your game?
All right, paint us a picture. What does a riveting supervisor do?
All right, imagine this. There's a massive construction project underway. Could be anything, a skyscraper, a huge bridge, something with a lot of rivets.
Okay, I could picture it.
A riveting supervisor, they're overseeing that whole operation. They're managing teams of riveters. They're coordinating with the engineers, the other trades, making sure those deadlines are met. And that safety, that's always the top priority.
So it's a high-pressure role, a lot of responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. At that level, you're not just responsible for your own work, you're responsible for the work of an entire team, success of a whole project. And things can change on a dime, you know?
I bet.
They need to be able to make those split-second decisions, adapt to unexpected problems, all while keeping that team motivated, inspired to do their best work.
So not just a skilled worker, but a leader. It's a far cry from that image of someone just hammering away at metal.
It really is. And it highlights something crucial about this field. It's not just about physical strength, not just about technical skills. Communication, collaboration, leadership, that's all part of the equation too.
It's about seeing the big picture
Yeah.
while never losing sight of those tiny details. It sounds incredibly demanding, but also incredibly rewarding to be at the helm of something so important. But let's be real, no job is perfect. What about the challenges of this line of work? What should someone going into this field be ready for? So we've talked about how far you can go in a riveting career, but what about the not-so-glamorous side? What are some of those everyday challenges someone going into this field should be ready for?
Well, first off, it is a physically demanding job, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's not like you're sitting at a desk all day.
No, not at all. You're on your feet a lot, often in awkward positions, and those repetitive motions, they can take a toll on your body.
I bet.
Plus, did we mention the noise?
Oh yeah, those riveting guns are loud, aren't they?
They can be pretty intense. Ear protection is definitely your friend.
Absolutely. But it's not just about the physical stuff, right? What about the mental focus this job takes?
Oh, it's huge. Remember those tiny tolerances we talked about?
Yeah, fractions of a millimeter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're maintaining that level of precision all day long, and that takes serious mental focus, attention to detail. One slip up, and you could end up redoing hours of work, or even worse, you could compromise the whole structure.
No pressure. Right.
It's like being a surgeon almost. Every move has to be deliberate, precise.
And I'm guessing there are always unexpected challenges, especially on those big projects. Things don't always go exactly according to plan, do they?
Never. Problem-solving skills, those are essential for a riveter. You got to be able to think on your feet. Let's say you're working on a bridge high up and you get to a section, and those metal plates, they don't line up perfectly. You can't just shrug and say, close enough. You've got to figure it out, adapt your technique, maybe find a workaround, and all the while, safety is always paramount.
So you need to be a bit of a MacGyver, able to handle anything that comes your way.
Exactly. But, you know, even with all those challenges, there's something really satisfying about this kind of work.
Oh, I bet. working with your hands, building something tangible, something that's going to last.
Exactly. And that's a big draw for a lot of people. You see the results of your hard work. It's right there in front of you. That sense of accomplishment, of being part of something bigger, it's pretty motivating.
For sure. And let's be real, the job security isn't bad either.
Nope. As long as we have planes to fly in, bridges to drive over, buildings to live in, we're going to need skilled riveters.
Makes sense. And if anything, all that technology we talked about, that's just going to create even more opportunities down the line, right?
Exactly. The riveters who can adapt, who can bridge that gap between traditional craftsmanship and those cutting-edge technologies, they're going to be in high demand.
It's a career with a bright future, but it takes a certain kind of person, someone with a mix of skills, grit, that willingness to adapt. So for those listeners who are thinking, hey, riveting, that might be my thing, what should they expect when they're sitting across from a potential employer? What kind of questions do aspiring riveters get asked in an interview?
Well, be prepared to go beyond the basics. They'll want to hear about your experience, of course. What kind of riveting have you done? What are your strongest techniques? But they're going to want to see what you're made of.
Right. See if you've got what it takes.
Yeah. Expect questions about problem solving, safety protocols, how you work independently, how you work on a team.
They want to know you're not just a pair of hands.
Right, exactly. They want to see that you understand the craft, the challenges, and that you can think on your feet. Don't be surprised if they throw in some curveballs. Maybe ask about a time you faced a tough situation on the job, how you dealt with it, what you learned from it.
So be prepared, be yourself, and show them you've got that riveting personality to go along with the skills.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of riveting.
It really has. We busted some myths, uncovered the hidden complexities, and saw how technology is shaping the future of this trade.
It's definitely a career path that doesn't get enough attention.
I agree. But as we've seen, it combines physical skill, mental sharpness, and that creative problem solving, and it's all about building the structures that hold our world together. Literally.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. And that brings us to our final thought for today. We talked about how robots are becoming more common in the riveting world, but what if, and hear me out on this, what if those robots actually end up making human riveters even more valuable?
Well,
Could those uniquely human skills, the adaptability, the critical thinking, that eye for detail, could they become even more important in the future as more routine tasks get taken over by machines? Something to think about. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of riveting. We'll catch you next time as we explore another fascinating career path.